Hello, Grammar 1 students. Well, after having worked with simple sentences, okay, and the basic verb patterns within the simple sentence, we are ready now to move on and work with more complex structures. Up to now, we have been dealing basically with different kinds of phrases. Now we'll start working with subordinate clauses. Of course, we have already worked with the classification of sentences into simple, compound, and complex. And in the case of complex sentences, we talked about structures that were made up of one main clause and at least one subordinate clause. Let's see what we mean then by a subordinate clause. First of all, there is a broad classification into two different kinds: finite subordinate clauses and non-finite subordinate clauses. Finite subordinate clauses have a subject and a predicate, which includes a conjugated verb form. Non-finite clauses are usually like predicates, which include a non-conjugated verb form. For the time being, let me give you an example of a non-conjugated verb form. It could be an infinitive, for example. All right. I said that they are like predicates. They might include a subject, but usually they don't. Today, we are going to concentrate on finite subordinate clauses, and these will be just an introduction to introduce the three types of finite subordinate clauses: noun clauses, relative clauses, and adverbial clauses. Let's move on. What about noun clauses? Well, first of all, we said clauses are structures that have a subject and a predicate. Now, why are noun clauses noun clauses? Well, because they are structures with a subject and a predicate that perform functions typically performed by nouns. So we might say that they have a nominal value. Somehow they are equivalent to a noun. Let me tell you here, be careful. In the case of the noun phrase, the noun phrase was a noun phrase precisely because the head was a noun. In the case of clauses, remember, we won't identify a head, but a subject and a predicate. So in this particular case, it is a noun clause because it is equivalent to a noun. So as they are equivalent to nouns, they typically perform the functions of subject, object, or complement. As regards the possibilities, how can they be introduced? Which word can we find at the beginning of a noun clause? Well, we may find the word that, which is a subordinating conjunction, as in the example here. I believe that students are eager to learn. See that here is between brackets because, of course, that might be omitted. And I could say, I believe students are eager to learn. Okay, the other possibility is to find a WH word introducing the noun clause. As in the example, they have what they need. The third possibility is having if or whether, these subordinating conjunctions. In this example, he asked me if I was married. If I was married is a noun clause. If you look at these three examples, in the three examples, the noun clauses perform the function of direct object. I believe, and check how this they are equivalent somehow to nouns. I believe something, right? I believe that students are eager to learn, or they have something, what they need. He asked me something again, he asked me a question, but instead of having a noun phrase, I have a clause. He asked me if I was married. Okay, so noun clauses perform the functions typically performed by nouns: subject, object, or complement. Let's move on now to relative clauses. Relative clauses are somehow related to adjectives. Why? Well, because they only perform one function, yes, one syntactic function. They are always pre-modifiers of a noun, okay? They will be somehow linked to a noun, to an antecedent noun. Relative clauses we usually study, all right, when we study English. In textbooks, there's usually a unit devoted to relative clauses. Well, they may be introduced by relative pronouns, relative determiners, or relative adverbs. I'm not going to go deep into each of these categories because next week we will concentrate and focus on relative clauses in particular. But well, for the time being, let me give you some examples. In the example with a relative pronoun, the man that my neighbor married is a thief. You see that you have the relative clause there highlighted and introduced by a relative pronoun that, which, let me tell you, may be omitted. Yeah, and I might have said the man my neighbor married is a thief. It could be a relative determiner. They interviewed the man whose wife was injured in the accident. And a relative adverb. The city where they first met was Rome. If you look at the three examples here, you will see that the relative clauses are closely linked to a noun because they belong into a noun phrase. In the first case, that my neighbor married is closely related to man. And of course, this relative clause appears within a noun phrase. In this case, the man that my neighbor married. In the second case, whose wife was injured in the accident, is closely linked to the man. Okay, it is a post modifier of the head man within the noun phrase, the man whose wife was injured in the accident. And in the last case, where they first met, is the post modifier of the head noun city within the noun phrase, the city where they first met. Okay, let's move now to the third kind, to adverbial clauses, which are introduced by subordinating conjunctions. Here you have some examples. When, while, because, although, since, as, if. There are many more, okay? And let me tell you, they perform one syntactic function. They are always adverbial adjuncts. Adverbial adjuncts of time, place, manner, reason. Let me read the examples here. I wouldn't know what to do if I were fired. I went for an example with using the subordinating conjunction if for you to compare this example to the example in the previous slide, the example of the noun clause. Remember? He asked me if. In this case, this has adverbial value, okay? It performs the function of an adverbial adjunct, of condition. So we may say that in the case of what we usually call conditional sentences, okay, those clauses are adverbial clauses. They are adverbial adjuncts of condition. The second example goes, as soon as the class finished, the teacher uploaded the video. As soon as the class finished. This would be another adverbial adjunct of time, probably. My daughter moved to Buenos Aires after she finished high school. Once again, this would be an adverbial clause performing the function of adverbial adjunct of time. Okay, well, this is just a first approach, an introduction to finite subordinate clauses. For the time being, I would like you to be able to think of the three possibilities, the three kinds, and see if you can work with these 5 clauses I have marked in this short extract, and see if you can identify which kind each case is, all right? The idea is to keep on working on these in our next Zoom meeting on Tuesday. So I would like you to go over this presentation again carefully and see if you can decide, okay, which kind each clause belongs to, and try to decide which syntactic function each one performs. Well, you have work to do. See you next Tuesday. I hope you have enjoyed this short video. Thank you.